On this episode of Lapeef, Let's Talk.
The truth is, people will fall in love. People have, it doesn't make you unvaluable or not. How can I say that? It doesn't make you worthless just because you fell in love once and you gave yourself to that person. I wouldn't call you worthless, but in the culture, you would be considered unmarriageable. Or if you do get married, you will marry a person that's probably already divorced and probably already has other situations going on. So
Let's start off with our first topic, which is dating manners across different cultures. Dating manners across different cultures. I feel like we always talk about the Black culture. So I wanted to try to do something a little different this time around. And I wanted to talk about different cultures because I feel as though we should just take a look into it and see how other people do it when it comes to relationships, dating, and marriage. So I want to bring to the stage a couple of our guests right now. I'll bring up Nina. What's going on, Nina?
Hey, how are you?
Oh, we're doing fantastic, man.
How's my homegirl doing?
I'm doing good, just burning up in this Texas heat.
Well, welcome to the show, man. We definitely appreciate you for tuning in. As you can
Thanks for having me.
No doubt. As you can see, dating manners across different cultures is the topic, and I want you to tell the people what your nationality is first.
So I am from a Hispanic or Latin descent, so I am Mexican American. Definitely more modern as compared to a lot of the traditional things that go on within our culture. So yeah, I'm ready to talk about both.
Okay. Well, I want you to start off by telling us a little bit about your culture.
Okay, so a little bit about our culture traditionally, and then I'll talk a little bit more about modern because I come from a little more modern evolution of it. So, my ancestors are from Mexico. And pretty much our traditions is, as far as religion, it's usually Christian Catholic. It's usually the men who have the say in the household. It used to be, I want to say used to be, I know some people still carry those traditions where the men are the income bringers and kind of what they say, they just take on the head of the household versus where women in our culture typically are stay-at-home moms. Typically we would cook, clean, serve the men, raise the kids, stay home, not have a job. And it was just running the house. As compared to now, that's tradition. However, with me, I was raised a little bit more different. My mom is from America. She is from Arkansas. My dad is from Fort Stockton, Texas. And they raised me a little different. So my mom raised me to definitely have a voice. I was raised to pick a career and pursue school versus traditionally, the Mexican culture is not really big on education. A lot of times, a lot of people would drop out in grade school, middle school, or high school, versus now they really push education. On me, at least, I know a lot of my friends who live in this area and siblings have been pushed the same way to go to school, get a good career, and be able to support yourself, whether you end up married or not. So I was raised very independently, which is a lot different from traditional ways in my culture. So I don't know. And I still see both. I still see very modern Mexican Americans, Hispanics, and then I do still see some households who do carry the more traditional way, their moms and them as well, still stay home and raise the kids. And that's amazing to carry both. So like I said, on my end, I was raised to be just independent and have a voice and voice my opinions. And yeah, I'm really grateful for that, and that my mom really pushed that. And my mom has always been equal head of household with my dad. She's actually more tough. She does a lot of tough love with us, but she makes a lot of decisions as well. I'd say maybe even more than my dad does within the household.
Okay. I want you to hold that thought. I'm going to also bring on our second guest, which is Amira Exile. What's going on, Amira?
Nothing much. Thank you for having me on again.
No problem. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. So I don't know if you heard, but the first question that I had is, what is your nationality, so that people can know?
I'm Middle Eastern. My family is from Lebanon. That's a country close to Egypt, if people don't know. And we speak Arabic. We are Muslims. And we come from a traditional background as well.
Okay. I want you to tell me a little bit about your culture. When it comes to, when it comes to dating and marriage. Let's start with dating first.
There is no dating.
What?
Okay, can you
Right up,
elaborate more on that?
my alley. Right up my alley.
So in our culture, we don't believe in having girlfriend, boyfriend. We don't believe in this period of, live together and test the waters and, dip your foot in and see. We don't believe in that. We believe either you're in it to win it or you're out. So typically, if a man wants to marry a woman, he goes to her family and he speaks to her father. And they talk about it, and the father vets the man, and then he will give the idea to his daughter and see if she approves of it. And if she does, then he will arrange a meeting. And that is called courting. That's the courtship.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about marriage, Nina, from your culture.
So marriage, so of course we do have dating. With our culture, you're not supposed to move in, and with our religion, you're not supposed to move in with that person until you're married. But marriage, yes, the man has to come and ask the father's hand in marriage, which is what my husband did as well. And we also did not live together until we were married as well. As far as marriage in our culture, I explained a lot of it to you guys as far as the man taking head of the household and making the decisions and bringing in the income. However, we're a little bit more evolved, and we both are heads of the household, and we both are the income bringers. But that's pretty much how marriage runs with us as well. So.
Okay. So I know you said that you were married. How old are you?
I'm 25.
Wow, 25. You married young. And how old were you when you got married?
I was 23.
23?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. I was waiting on the mirror to come back. There she is. 1 second. There you go. Welcome back. Can you hear me? She got the P-Ray going on.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It was kind of freezing up a little bit. Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Okay. Welcome back.
Yes.
Amira, are you married?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how old are you? This might not work.
I'm 27.
Okay, you're 27. Are you catching everything on a delay right now? Probably so. Okay. Sorry about that, you guys. those issues that we run into when we going live, but we're gonna keep the show going on. Okay, Nina. So you said that you are 25 and you married at what age again?
23.
Okay, now is that pretty typical?
Oh, yes. Traditionally, yes. There did used to be a stigma on, especially on women, not being married. I want to say around the age of 30, the family would kind of give them a hard time, and the parents, and it was kind of like, find a man, stick with it, get married, start a family. But again, it has evolved a lot in our culture. So 25 is actually pretty young.
Okay.
Or I guess I should say 23 is very young to get married now.
Okay. All right. Okay. I know you've been sitting back listening to the different cultures. How do you feel about what Nina said so far? Like as far as like how their culture is versus our culture?
I think I identified, I guess, a lot with some of the things she was saying, just about how her parents kind of pushed her to pursue, education and all of these types of things. Because, my dad was really on that with me, and he's not from America. So like, in terms of the dating situation that Amira was talking about earlier, that sounds very similar to what Anton kind of talks about. And Nina sounds very similar, like kind of like a hybrid between like her traditional culture and then also like more modern American dating culture. So, I mean, both sounded good to me. It just depends on the people.
Hi, Courtney, coming to you, same question. I know you sat back and listened to Nina as well as Amira.
Right.
What are your thoughts when it comes to their culture versus ours?
I mean, it sounds very traditional. And I think our culture was, had those ideas back 50 plus years ago. But the evolution of where we are right now, we don't. We've lost all kind of tradition, which I can respect different cultures that, have their tradition and keep and stand by it. Regardless of feminism or whatnot, they still are standing by it. So I can definitely respect it. I, am one to say I wish that we could go back where, at 25, 23, it's looking at you like, when are you going to get married? And at 30, it's like, all right, what's poppin', child? So, yeah, I wish we would go back. So I respect both cultures. Again, that's why they are married at such a young age. Then you see we're getting married. It's because they've stuck to it. So tradition is important, but you have to continue on. That's what makes it traditional.
Right.
Hey, Nina, I got a question. I'm
Yes.
curious. So, Kay kind of hit it on the head when she said that you guys kind of operate or based off of what you described, it's kind of like a hybrid, right? There is a process of, obviously your husband or your fiance or whatever like that going to your father or so on and so forth, right? How did you meet your husband?
I met him through St. Elizabeth's, which is our Catholic church, one of the Catholic churches here in Odessa. Before I met him, I had previous relationships before that where I was dating. And it wasn't very traditional. In a previous relationship, I kind of got into it with my mom because I told her I was going to move in with this person. She told me, well, you're dumb, you're young, and this is not how it works. You should be married. You don't even know who you are yet. And she was right. So when I moved in with that person, I learned a lot about myself and what I wanted. We were both very young, and I still am very young. And we were both, of course, trying to grow. We were growing in completely different directions. I learned a lot about that person as well. And that person really does come from a very traditional background as well. But just there's remixes on it. You can be from one culture, but people are still going to have different traditions, different beliefs. And so I came out of that relationship realizing I knew what I wanted and I prayed for what I wanted. And I started going to church on my own. And that's another thing. My parents weren't practicing Catholics. I chose to get baptized and go to church on my own. And that's where I ended up meeting my husband. And on my husband's end, he was raised every Sunday. They went to church. Even during the week, they went to church. They did different church events. And so he was raised a lot different than I was. But our worlds ended up crossing paths because of church. So
Amir,
it is traditional.
I'm curious as to how you met your husband.
Yeah. So I used to see, so Odessa is kind of I wouldn't say so much of a small town, but you pretty much know, we have 2 high schools. So the word gets around of who's who and you know of people. And so I knew of him. We have a 5-year age gap. So I knew of him. I didn't know him. So I would see him at church. We had each other on social media. So that's another thing with dating and marriage things. You meet a lot of people on social media. I knew him from social media. I saw him when I started going to church. I would go by myself. And every once in a while we would cross paths and we would say kind of a little hi or a little smile at each other. And then eventually he started competing for bodybuilding, and I used to compete in bodybuilding, and I saw him post about it on social media getting ready for a competition, and I was the one that kind of slid into his DMs and just kind of
So wait. We're not gonna go past that. So you slid into his DMs.
Yes, I did.
Oh, really?
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yes.
So
Yes. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Now I'll come back. This is gonna be a long show. Go ahead, Jenna.
It's okay.
Courtney, you muted.
My bad. So I have a question for the ladies.
Yes.
We're talking about you guys' culture, and obviously you live in the States, so you see westernized women. So what are your thoughts on us? Because we understand where you guys are coming from. So what do you think about us as far as Americanized women here, born and raised, and how we date? How do you feel about that? And then even being married at 25, do you feel like you've experienced, or you're like, I'm sad, I should have been, married at 22?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I feel like, especially American women, the direction that we have evolved in, I praise it. I think that it's moving exactly in the direction that it should. As far as me getting married at such a young age, here in our culture back then, 25 was average, a good age. It used to be even younger. For me, getting married at 23 is very young. However, the way I was raised, the way my mom and dad raised me, to have my voice, to be independent, to do my own things, to learn how to do things for myself, I ended up maturing at a very, very young age. So the things that teens were doing in their teens days, I was doing when I was very, very young. I moved a little too fast with a lot of milestones in my life. The things that college kids were doing in the college life, I was doing when I was a teen, maybe even younger than that. And I was experiencing a lot of different ups and downs. Dating, of course, is one of them. Partying was a big one as well. And just making some really, really dumb decisions. And I've made a lot of those.
Very much Americanized. Like you are very much operating the same way that the majority of a lot of the women in America operate, right?
Yes, definitely.
I can tell she's a little bit modern than maybe her family is. But like I said, when you were raised with both parents, they instilled this tradition from your culture into you.
Yes. So it was mainly my mom was the one who had a very big voice. However, my mom was from Arkansas. Her parents came from Mexico. She lost her mom at a very young age. So my mom, I think, was 15 when my grandmother passed with cancer. So my mom and her siblings pretty much raised themselves while their father was out working in the ranch and wasn't really home much. So they kind of had to kind of pave their own way. And they did that with me and all of my cousins. So we're all very modern. But I do have a couple aunts and uncles who still try to really cling on to those real traditional ways. And so my cousins grew up with that as well. And so they were raised a little bit different than I was. Me, myself, I don't know a lot of Spanish because my parents raised me speaking English. Versus I have some cousins who they were raised to speak Spanish and learn English when they go to school.
So you're not really a big fan of like the traditional ways to a larger extent, right? Like you're very much like, yo, I'm trying to live life and kind of move a little differently than how we was, how my siblings or maybe your mother was was raised, correct?
Pretty much.
So let me ask you another question.
Mm-hmm.
Your friends, right? Is a lot of your friends single or are they married?
No, a lot of them are single with kids.
I'm sorry? Single with kids?
Single with kids.
So do you think that a lot of the ways in which they believe or a lot of their modern ways have put them kind of in that space, or do you think that that's just the way that it kind of panned out or worked out?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I would say maybe both. I don't know. I know a lot of my friends who are Mexican were raised kind of the same. Some of the parents were more strict, but I've just noticed, especially with time and just things evolving, women, I think this goes for most women in America, have just really pushed with having their own voice, making their own decisions, and not sticking to traditional ways that they feel is outdated. And I think that's what happened with a lot of my friends as well. Because a lot of them are not married. A lot of my friends are single. Some of them, and especially with different cultures too. You used to see a lot of cultures sticking to their own culture, getting married in their own culture, having kids with someone who's within the same culture, the same race. And now you see a lot of mixed cultures.
What nationality of men do your friends prefer?
I would say,
come on.
I see a lot of Mexican. I see a lot of Mexican, and I see a lot of black men.
So Mexican and black men to a larger extent.
Yes.
So let me ask you another question. I got a good one for you.
Okay.
You don't have to answer it if you don't want to.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Because I know that you emphasize that you love the direction that things are going and women having more freedom and all of this other type of stuff, right? I don't know the dynamics of your relationship specifically, the ins and outs. However, if you had to subject yourself to a lot of the traditional ways, the staying at home, cooking and cleaning versus having the freedom to kind of do what you want to do and move how you want to move whenever you want to go. If you had to have a choice between subjecting yourself to that lifestyle versus kind of doing what you want to do and being single, which one would you choose?
I mean, that's pretty easy. Not the traditional ways.
You would rather be single?
Yeah, because I went through a previous relationship where I moved in with that person, and that's how things had to be ran, and it didn't work for me. And I eventually got out of that and ended up meeting someone who is very big on, we both have a say, we both can pursue careers, we both can go to school.
What about when you had kids? Then what?
What about with kids? As
Do
far
you
as
still plan on having the same trajectory as far as you both doing it, or do you want to start to lean more into being more of a mother and not having to be required to work? What does that look like?
So we've talked about this before too. I always saw my mom working. She's a very, very hard worker. And I would say I'm the same way. I can't see myself not working. Even if I have the option, and I do have the option to stay at home and just chill for now. I mean, we don't have any kids. I can't see myself doing that. I like being involved with things, and I like working. I like the thought of having a career. And especially with kids, we've talked about that too. We want our kids, male or female, to go to school, try to push for an education and pursue careers to where if they don't end up getting married, they are perfectly capable of taking care of themselves.
Amir, can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you?
Yes, I hear you guys. Can you hear me good?
Yeah.
Yep, I can hear you really well.
Was
So
going to
I'm
ask her that
curious.
same question about how she met her husband.
Yeah, how did you meet your husband?
Our families knew one another, and he met my cousin, and he saw me at my cousin's birthday party, and he went to my cousin and said, "Can I speak to her father?" And everybody knows what that means, and that was it.
Right off the bat, and that was it.
Right off the bat. I probably knew my husband 5 weeks before we got married, around
That-
5, 6 weeks.
5 weeks.
Yeah, I
What?
like that. Okay, so you kind of all right. So I got another question. What do you feel about, or what are your thoughts towards, more or less modern women, right? Women that are somewhat embracing the culture of America, and that women and men are equal, right? They're equal in as far as like making decisions in a household. Um, if they have kids, then the woman go back to work, so on and so forth. What are your thoughts towards that whole narrative that's happening in America versus maybe what your culture is?
I think it's a luxury. I think it's a huge luxury to be able to have that kind of thought process, to think, oh, I can just be equal to this person without actually having to do the same work that person does. Example, women say that they're equal to men in this country, yet they don't do half of the same jobs that men do in this country. If you want to be equal in the high levels, you should also be equal in the lower levels. They want to be equal as in they want to be president, but they don't want to help out when it's time to do sewage work, when it's time to take out the trash, not out of the house. I mean, for the community, So I don't know. I think it's a huge luxury, and I think that if they lived a little bit more in the past, they would not have the luxury to say I am equal, because they would understand that they're not.
What do y'all think about? What you think about that, Kay?
I think men and women are of
I don't
equal.
care.
I think men and women are of equal importance, but it's just different function, I guess. So, I mean, she's right. Like, women aren't in certain fields as much as men. I think that there's a lot of things that go into that, though. So I guess I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. I mean, especially here in America. I mean, I know that things are different other places. Here in America, I mean, the European standard was the standard for what was considered traditional in terms of American customs and practices, right? So in Europe, I mean, things were different and women were treated a certain way. And that's why white feminism became a thing. I don't align myself with white feminism because, that's not my issue.
Oh, really?
I don't. But we got to really think about, where did these traditions and these things come from? They didn't come from African traditions or Asian traditions or any of these things.
Okay, can you give
I
an
think
example of what tradition you're talking about?
Yeah, so even something like women trying to fight for these rights to be equal, like what you were kind of just talking about. That whole feminism thing is very much a European ideology, because they we're trying to fight for this equality based on being subjugated or whatever the case may be. And I think that a lot of people American born kind of just adopted these beliefs from living in America. So everyone, I don't know, everybody doesn't have the same thoughts that you would have growing up in a more traditional setting with parents who are not American. So, I mean, I respect everyone else's culture because that's what, their traditions are, dictating for them. But it's just different in America. I mean, it's just different amongst people who lived in America, have American parents, and I feel like I kind of see both sides because one of my parents is American and one is not. So it's just, I see that there is a clear difference between my American side of the family and my non-American side of the family. Like, it's so different, which helps me to be more, I guess, understanding of both sides. That's why, right, the balance. Like, I would never say like, oh, Amira, like whatever, the whole thing that you said about dating. Some people will probably be shocked, like, oh, like I would never get married before. But I mean, I don't see an issue with that at all. I also don't see an issue with dating because a lot of people wouldn't be okay with the whole like not dating situation. So I mean, it just depends. I have a lot of room to accept different customs and traditions from other people.
I'm curious to know what you guys think is better. Now hearing my side and your side, what do you think is better? People testing out the waters and enjoying one another before they get married, or just getting married and making a firm decision?
You know what? I really wanted to speak to that while you were talking. I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, okay, so which one? I think that there needs to be a strong foundation and tradition for the way that you experienced to work. Like, you can't just take the average American whose parents are American, whose grandparents are American, and just be like, okay, I'm gonna meet your dad or whatever, and now y'all are gonna be married in 5 weeks. Like, they don't have that foundation that you had in order to make that work. So it's not even a question of which one is better. It's just that the foundation is not there for the way that you had to work for a lot of people here that didn't have that strong cultural foundation that you have. So I don't think either is better. It really just depends how you.
How did I know you were gonna say that, Kay?
Because it's true. Like, what do you want me to do? Say one person?
I mean, you got an opinion. No, it's not because listen, and I'm not getting on you. I'm just saying that you can have respect for other people's perspectives and still choose which one you think is better. Like,
yeah, but I can choose which one I think is better for me, but I can't say which one is inherently
okay. Which one do you think is better for you?
Well,
which are better outcomes?
I think that the better outcomes would definitely be the ones that are more culturally sound and traditional, because there's that entire culture there, though. It's not just the end result of the marriage. It's everything that comes with that. It's shared language, it's shared traditions, it's shared knowing where you came from. It's all of these things. So with all of that in place, yes, absolutely, there will be a stronger foundation there. I don't necessarily think that would yield as good of results as some people might think amongst like extremely westernized people, though, because they don't have that strong foundation of a specific culture outside of America. So that's why I can't say one is better. It really just depends where you're from and how you grew up.
Courtney,
I have a question.
Courtney, go ahead.
Courtney, which one do you think is better before you ask the question?
I would probably prefer that when you're younger and the whole not worrying about dating, that you the family should be helping you pick your husband. So I think that's important, but that is a cultural thing that's not American culture. So that's not what we do. So even if we decide, yeah, let's do that, I mean, we're picking, choosing different cultures, which is not our own, which could be problematic.
Right.
But I want to ask something to, was it Maria? Exactly.
Nina? Nina.
Amira.
Oh, Mira.
Mira, yeah.
Oh,
What do you think about Nina when she said that, if she had to do it differently, she would date? What do you think about that?
I don't think I actually heard that part because I was too busy fighting with my boost
Okay,
mobile
well, that's what she
internet.
said, because I know you're kind of getting okay, but the thing is, because we are Americanized and I don't even think we have a whole American culture because it's just flip flops with the wind. But what she specified is that, yes, she's married and she got married young, but if she had to do it again, she would probably date more. So therefore, she said that she was traditional, but again, being that that's what we do here in America, and she's family's from Arkansas, she has that in her head. So what would you say about that?
It's a normal feeling. A lot of us feel that way because I got married so quickly. I never got a chance to date. I never had a boyfriend. I never had anything. And I guess for me, it's normal. But when I see girls my age here, they always talk about like how they love to have a different experience. They experience a Latino and they experience maybe African American and they experience this. And honestly, I don't think, Nina, you would be missing anything had you had your turn on the CC. You wouldn't have missed anything, honestly. You only feel that in the back of your head. That's shaitan, we call it, the devil talking to you, telling you, oh, you're missing something. You should make the best out of your situation, make the best out of your life with your husband. The grass is not always greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it.
Yeah, I just want to clarify something. I guess I misunderstood the question. I dated a lot and I dated at a very early age. And I was at a point to where I wasn't open to dating anymore, but I wasn't completely shut off to it. Then when I met my husband, that's when I realized that I met someone who was, I would say, pretty much, I wouldn't say perfect because perfect's not a real thing, but very close to a perfect match. And so I was not, and that was the first time too, because I did go through relationships. I'd say pretty much all my relationships, I cheated in them. And I talk very openly about it. And it's because I was not happy in it. And I knew that's not who I wanted to be with forever. And it wasn't until I met this person that I really, really shut off. I had no interest in other people after that.
What did your father say about that? Did your father say anything about you, I guess, finding your match I mean, I'm not saying like that. I mean, like, what did he say about you finding your match? Did he have any input in your decision?
He was very excited because compared to the past relationships I had, they were really bad. They were very toxic and just disintegrating. So when my parents met this person, I mean, they fell head over heels for this guy. I mean, they love him so much. And they were very, very excited to see me bring in somebody who had their head on their shoulders, somebody who was focused, knew what he wanted, knew what he was doing. He was chivalry at its best.
So had your family not accepted him, you still would have had still would have had the option to marry him no matter what? Even if your family disapproved, you would have still married him?
No, because I was in a relationship where my parents disapproved of him and I knew it was not going to work out. So no, had he been a different guy, I mean, just someone who was not right for me, and which your parents, of course, always know best. So with that other relationship, I was in that situation where we had talked about marriage and kids one day, but it was just such a toxic relationship and it was really breaking me into pieces. And my parents did not like that person. I had a lot of problems within my family. There was times where my parents didn't want to talk to me because I was still with this person. They just could not understand why I was still with someone like this. And they couldn't have even fathomed the thought of me getting married to that person versus my husband. Now, like I said, my parents really respect this person. They appreciate him. They love him. And that is one of the main factors why this marriage was able to work as well, because the family approves of him also.
I kind of want to, you got something, Courtney? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. I kind of want to switch it up a little bit. Let's talk about sex. Okay, y'all cool? And you guys' culture, sex. How do you guys do it? I mean, is it
Not how
done?
you do it.
Well,
Missionary
first,
from
let
the
me explain. We have a camel.
back. How you
First, we
do
get
it?
the camel and we bring him to the goats. And
I'm gonna start with you. I'm gonna start with you, Amir. Let's talk about sex. How is sex viewed, acted out over there in your culture?
who's going first?
You, Amir.
Since y'all
Oh,
talking about you
man.
guys' culture.
Oh, okay. Okay. So in our culture, the word marriage translates to sex. So we don't believe in anything of sex before you're married. So basically, when you say I'm married, that means I'm having sex. So that's sex. And as for it happening, do you want to know rules? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
rules.
I
Yes,
mean,
there's rules.
just tell us everything that we need to know so we can have a better understanding. I mean, dating manners across different cultures is the topic, and we just want to dive in and get deep.
Okay. The rules are, you want your woman to be virgin. There's a really high emphasis on virginity in my culture. The purity of a woman is her value. Her value lies in her purity. A woman who is undisciplined and out um, on the CC, as they call it, those ones are considered worthless. I hate to say it like that, but they're worthless, untouchables, unmarriageable.
What?
Um, and the ones that are clean, pure, as they call it, they are of higher value. Um,
Do you believe that?
in some ways, yes, I do. And in some ways, I
Hmm.
think it's kind of just a way to keep people in line, Courtney, honestly, because the truth is, people fall in love. People have, it doesn't make you unvaluable or not. How can I say that? It doesn't make you worthless just because you fell in love once and you gave yourself to that person. I wouldn't call you worthless, but in the culture, you would be considered unmarriageable. Or if you do get married, you will marry a person that's probably already divorced and probably already has other situations going on. So,
And this is if they're not virgins.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
What
you
do you
might end up
think?
being the second wife of someone. Like second wife. Men are permitted to have four wives, and yeah. And as for sexual intercourse, they don't. You don't have sex with all your wives at the same time. There's no orgies going on. It is definitely separated. Everything is separated.
What do you think about that, Court?
As far as what her culture is saying that if they're not a virgin before they're married, that they're worthless.
The whole thing, not just that part. Yeah, that
Oh, well, that's
also,
the.
but just
I
the
mean,
whole idea behind the
well,
purities and the virginity and all of that other type of
well,
stuff.
I totally agree. That's why God made you and wanted you to be a virgin before marriage. Like you're supposed to be for your husband. So I completely agree. Um, but I would never call anyone worthless or just. I mean, people can be unmarriageable for a lot of different reasons, but you can change to always be marriageable. I definitely understand what she was saying with because of your actions, that depends on the type of quality of man that you get. So I definitely understand that. I think that's what we preach a lot on this show. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't call anybody worthless.
Okay. Nina, same question. Let's talk about sex in your culture.
So sex is a no-go unless you're married. It's just, in accordance with scripture, in the Bible. So that's how it's supposed to be. Of course, like I said, a lot of our culture has evolved and people do their own thing. Of course, you want to. I wouldn't say it's not nearly as. I guess how do I want to say it? It's not pushed as much as I would say Amir's culture, but it is there with our culture. It is talked about, and you don't talk about sex unless you're married. It's pretty much this. It's very close. Just like I said, you just don't have sex until you're married.
Yeah, which is Christian based. America is based on Christianity, and so I mean, we definitely supposed to believe in that. But does it happen? Obviously not.
And I would assume that it doesn't happen in everyone's culture as well either. So there's people that's for the streets in every single culture.
Kay, what do you think about that?
What do you think I think? No, I'm just playing.
What?
I'm just playing. Because I know that when you say what I'm going to say, you're going to be like, oh, I knew it. In terms of the whole like worthless thing, like I've heard that before, as it relates to different cultures viewing it like the woman's worth is in whether or not she is a virgin when she gets married. Like that's such a huge deal for many cultures. I mean, personally, I wouldn't say that a person was worthless or whatever, but that's because, you know, I grew up here. I, you know, have different views. But I respect different cultures. I don't.
Do you think that
that
some women are valued less as a result of the mileage that they get from the streets?
That they get from the streets. Yeah, I think that even amongst people who are not heavily into religion in America, like people born and raised in America with American parents, I think that there's still a lot of people who put a lot of value on a person's, I guess, sexual history. But I think that it depends on the person too. Some people don't ask those questions or even really think about it.
Do you think that women are a little less valuable as they get their mileage up from the streets?
I don't think that the act of having the sex is the thing that causes the problem, I guess. I don't even want to say the word problem, but I think that the multiple relationships that maybe have failed and maybe you're jaded now and maybe your self-esteem has been affected. I think it's more so that than the actual act itself, because you can get with one person and be completely just emotionally and mentally destroyed to a point where you need to do some sort of interventions to get yourself back to a point where you're healthy and sound enough to have a healthy relationship. Or you could be with, I don't know, however many people and not have those issues.
Would you rather have a new car off the lot or one with 250,000 miles on it?
Women are not cars, but I would rather have a new car.
They aren't?
No, women are women.
You gotta ride them. You gotta ride them.
We ride you.
I like that, Court. I like that. Yeah. You know, it's the braids that's doing it to her, and she's bringing out her Sasha Fierce. I like your Sasha Fierce moment. Okay, that's what I like. That's what I like.